Okay, so I'm on my way to a rehearsal. And I wanted to tell this story because the other day, I was talking to, I don't know how the conversation came up, but we started talking about birthdays. So they asked, they're like, oh, when's your birthday? And I was like, oh, it happened back in February. They're like, oh, like you didn't go out for it or anything like that? I was like, no, I'm a little bit older now. Like, you know, who really goes out for their birthday nowadays? You know, it's not like I'm going out to Vegas or something like that. So they kind of chastised me about it. And I told them that I'm a little gun shy about going out because I had a bad experience going out for somebody's birthday party. And this is that story. Now, before I get into it, hand to God, everything in this story is true. I'm not trying to embellish anything. I'm going to tell the story from my perspective as I felt as it was going on. Because looking back on it, So anyways, I was dating this girl, and let's just say her name is Holly. I was dating Holly. Now, her and I started dating like a couple months after my dad had passed away, which is like the worst time to get into a relationship with anyone after one of your parents dies, because like you're a mess and you're just looking for something to like numb the pain. So like it really was not a good idea on my end to get into this relationship. But I was young and I was dumb. So this was like 10-ish years ago. So we started dating, and it's very early on in a relationship. We're still in like the throes of all the puppy love and such. Like all you want to do is spend time with each other, but you still don't know each other super well. Well, she had a 21st birthday that was coming up, and she's like, I want to go out for my 21st. And I said, right on. I have to work that night, but I'm more than happy to come out later and I'll be your DD for the night. And she was a little bit upset with that idea. She's like, I want to drink with you. And I was like, it's okay. You know, like we can drink any other time. Like that's not a problem. So she went out with some of her sorority sisters and some of her friends to go out drinking while I was delivering pizzas at the time. So, now I should point out that she was from a particular county in Ohio that is notorious for their drinking. They are like second in the state of Ohio for like DUIs, and it's like a point of pride for that particular county. Like the big thing that they do there is they sit in the garage and drink. Now if that's something you like doing, like roger that, like more power to you, but like I don't know, but that's what happens when you live in those smaller communities. Like there's not really much to do. You go over to somebody's house, you sit in the garage, you drink, and you talk smack about the people that live in your town or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, she had gone to a bar with some of her friends and such, and I get off, and by the time I get off, it's probably like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So I go, I change real quick, and I meet her over at the bar, and she is 3 sheets to the wind. Like she's just gone. She had a good time, and her sorority sisters are there, like all egging her on, and like she's doing the basic white girl thing. Like she's got the sash that says like birthday bitch, and she's got like a cowboy hat on. Like she was living her best life that night. And I should have known what was going to be a precursor for all these events when she was like, you should try these Jell-O shots. And I was like, oh, okay. And before I could try one, just to see what it was like, she's like, these nice guys got them for us. I was like, oh, God. So I try one of them. And it is more appropriately to label them as Jell-O flavored paint thinner. Like, it is just so freaking strong, and it's just like unbearable. I was like, how many did you have? And she's like, all of them. And I was like, wait. Okay. We ended up having a mutual friend come out, and she was going to be the DD until I got there. And then she was going to start drinking. But judging on how Holly was going, she you know, she's already gone. So much so that she was, you know, couldn't walk. She was just tumbling all over herself. So it's probably about 11:30 at this point, and I was like, you know what, like, she's I think she's probably had enough. Let's just get her cashed out and we'll just take her home. Like, she's not gonna make it much longer. And we're like, okay, that's a good idea. So, like, you gotta, like, help her up to the car and everything. So I finally get her into our friend's car, and she's like, I'm gonna drive her home. That way you can drive your car over there. I was like, okay, right on. So drive over to her place, and it's probably about like a 10-minute drive. And by the time we get there, Holly is just like passed out in that front seat. And so I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a lot harder to like get her in the house than it was, you know, out of the barn into the car. So once we get her back to her place, I was like, okay. So I do like the whole like hand under the knees and one behind the head, and like, you know, get her up out of the seat and walk her through the, you know, past the threshold and everything like that. And I was like, big flexing. Except as I was doing that, like, my whole back just like was out of whack because I pulled something. I was like, oh. So I get her through the back door because our friend is holding it, and our friend is like, are you going to be able to get her to bed? And I was like, yeah, it should be fine. And as I turn, boom! I ended up smoking her head against the wall. And I like freaked out for a moment. I was like, oh snap. I was like, I killed her. But then she started to stir, and she's like, are we home? And I was like, yeah, honey, we're home. Ugh. So I was like, okay. And so I go and I put her to bed. She had this like cute little like black dress on. I like put her in bed while she still wore the dress. And she's starting to stir a little bit more, and she's like, hey, can you help me get ready for bed? And I was like, yeah, of course, sweetie. Like, you know, like, what do you need? She's like, can you get some underwear out of my top drawer? I was like, were you not wearing underwear to begin the night? I just didn't feel like wearing any. Okay, all right. You know, none of my business. Like, you do you, baby. Thought it was a little weird, but I'm also a guy, so you know I understand things are different, I suppose. But it's still early on in the relationship, and it's like I don't necessarily feel comfortable like just rooting around in her unmentionables. But I was like, yeah, what color do you want? Just grab the first thing you can get. And I was like, oh, God. So I do, you know, like, put the hand above, you know, in front of the eyes. And, like, just pull out first thing I can find. And, like, it's so weird to me. Like, this is so out of my, like, comfort zone at this point. Because it's like, I don't know her that well, like, to be like, oh, yeah, you should definitely wear this little number. Because everything looks uncomfortable. It's like, well, how can you sleep in this thing? So I just kind of grabbed the first thing, and I don't know what people keep in their underwear drawers. Like, there's all sorts of weird things, because we hope that people won't be going through them. But apparently she trusted me enough to do that. So I just grabbed the first thing, and I just kind of, like, handed it to her. And she goes, Can you help me put them on? And I was like, oh my God. And I felt like I was changing the diaper of a toddler. Like, it's just like, okay, like trying to get these bad boys on the scale. And she did not make it particularly easy. And I'm trying to, like, not be like a weirdo about it or anything like that. Like, trying to be, like, respectful. I'm not just trying to, like, ire bits or anything like that. But that was so weird. And so I'm like, oh, I just feel gross. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. She goes, okay. She's like pulling up the covers. And so as I make my way to the bathroom, I run into one of Holly's roommates, and it's like one of her sorority sisters. I want to say her name's like Sarah or something like that. I'm probably wrong, but for this sake, Sarah. Sarah's like, oh, you guys are back. We're like, yeah, she went hard. So Sarah's like, okay, well, I'm going to say, tell her happy birthday and see how her night went. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. So I go to the bathroom, and I'm finishing up, and I'm washing my hands, and I hear this, like, thump against the wall. And I was like, what was that? And then I hear what sounds like a door being slammed. And I was like, is that coming from in the house? Because, like, the whole house, like, rattled for a moment. So I get done, I wash my hands, and I walk back, and I see Sarah, like, against the wall, but on the floor. And then I look, and I see Holly's dress is on the floor, and the underwear that I just picked out is on the floor as well. So I turn to Sarah, and I go, what just happened? And Sarah goes, she pushed me. I was like, what do you mean she pushed you? I asked, and then so Sarah was like, I asked her how her night was, and she's like, can you get this dress off me so that I could get ready for bed? And so I helped her take the dress off. I was like, you took the dress off of her? And she's like, yeah, like, most people sleep naked. Who sleeps in a dress? And I was like, that's not the point. The point is that, where is she? And she's like, she left. I was like, I can see that. Why isn't she here? She's like, well, she pushed me. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, put your shoes on. We got to go find her. Because I see the back door is wide open. And Holly is nowhere to be seen. So I throw my shoes on, and I run outside, and Sarah's behind me. And we get to the front yard, and we look down left and right. And it's just like crickets. There's nothing. All you can hear is like traffic from down the road. And it was just so terrifying, because you think when a naked lady leaves your house, or any building for that matter, someone's gonna make a sound, right? And it was like she never existed in the first place. It was terrifying. And my heart started racing, because I was like, I don't know where to look for this gal, because it's pitch black out. It's basically midnight, and I have no idea where she is. She doesn't have her phone on her. I think she's naked, and she's running around. So I was like, you go this way, I'll go this way, and if call me if you find her, I'll call you if I find her. And so my first thought is like, okay, listen for like dogs or like sticks being broken, like the sound of somebody running, or looking for floodlights coming on, like those security lights. And there was just nothing. was absolutely nothing. It was silence. And I was like, oh my gosh. If she gets arrested or she gets hurt, I'm going to have to make one of the worst phone calls of my life. I'm going to have to call her folks and go, hi, I know we've never met, but I am Holly's boyfriend. And I need your help to bail her out of jail. It's not really the first impression I want to give to somebody's folks, although it's, well, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be the worst one anyways, she's missing. And so I'm jogging down this road, just looking for any sign of life, and it is like a Silent Hill movie. Like there's a light fog starting to roll in, and it is pitch black, and there's some street lights down this road, but I cannot find this gal. And then it starts to dawn on me. I was like, I'm going to have to call the police and tell them that I lost my naked girlfriend. Whether or not they believe that or not, I have no clue, because who's going to, I mean, you know, like some 20-year-old dude calling like, hey, there's a naked lady running through my neighborhood and I can't find her. You know, like, who's going to believe that? Like, yes, sir, we'll send a cop car there right away. You know, one of those things. So, I reached down to the block and I then look left and right, and there's still nothing. So I'm starting to panic at this point, because I don't know what to do. I've never lost anybody, and I just don't know what to do. So I was like, well, let me start making my way back. Because I'm about a mile away from her house. So I start walking back, you know, still hoping that like I'll hear something, or like Sarah will call me and be like, found her, or something like that. And there's like a side street, and I see a light on for the porch, and I don't remember it being on in the first place, but I see somebody sitting on their front porch. So I start kind of making my way like over there. And before I could say anything, the lady that's sitting on this front porch is like, are you looking for somebody? And I was like, yes, oh my gosh, yes. And she goes, are you looking for a girl named Holly? And I go, yes, I'm her boyfriend. I lost her. And she's like, how'd you lose her? And I was like, I don't know if you'll believe this or not, but she beat up her roommate and ran out of the house. She goes, oh, okay. Well, I know where she's at. I was like, oh my God, did you see her run by? She's like, kinda. I was like, okay. Which way did she go? She's like, well, she's in my house right now. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, you brought her in. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh my gosh. I know where she's at, and she's not outside. I said, oh, that's fantastic. Can I go and see her? And she goes, yes, but I need to ask you something before you come in. I go, sure, of course. She goes, do you guys have a baby? And I go, a baby? She's like, yeah, do you have a baby? I said, no, ma'am. We don't even have a dog. Why? And she goes, well, because Holly broke into our house and started screaming, he killed our baby. I said, excuse me? She broke into your house? She's like, yeah, she just opened the door and came in. I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay. I was like, no, there's no baby. There's nothing like that. She goes, okay. So she takes me to her, and she's sitting in like a fetal position with a blanket wrapped around her, and she's just like mumbling to herself like a mad woman. And if you leave the house like buck naked, like there's a little bit of crazy in you, right? So I walk in, and as I walk in, there's two dudes like sitting on the couch, kind of like this, like watching TV, and it's like, bro, I know you just looked at my girlfriend's parts, and I'm mad about it, but there's nothing I can do right now. I'm just trying to get this gal home. So, you know, like I kind of go up and I'm like, hey, honey, are you okay? And she does like kind of one of these things, like a dog that's been hit, like, oh. I was so dumbfounded. I was just like, oh no, this does not look good. Here I am. I just told this lady, I was like, no, there's no baby. But now it seems like there's something going on. I was like, we need to get you home. You know, I had yourself a night, but you know, like we're gonna get you home. And the lady goes, she's like, I think I have to tell you something else. I was like, okay. How else can this night get worse? She's like, I called the cops. I was like, you called the cops? She goes, a naked lady broke into my house. Like, how do I not call the cops? I was like, okay, fair enough. So we're kind of standing around talking a little bit. I was like, okay, she didn't break anything, right? Like, is anybody hurt? You know, is she hurt or anything like that? We're like, well, we weren't sure if she was hurt, which is why we kind of called the cops and wanted to make sure everything was cool. I was like, okay, I got you. So then we hear a knock on the door and it's the authorities. And the police come in and they start asking a bunch of questions, as they should, you know, like somebody just committed a B&E and they're naked. And there's all these people standing around, like something seems a bit nefarious, right? So they're like, who are you? And I was like, well, I'm the boyfriend. They're like, oh, okay. All right. Well, can you step outside with Officer such and such? And I was like, yeah, I thought that might happen. I was like, okay, yeah, I've seen SVU. So they take me outside, and then what I see is 2 fire trucks, an EMT vehicle, and 2 to 3 police cars, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of vehicles there. And it seemed like a bit of overkill, but whatever. So they start grilling me about everything that happened tonight. They're like, what happened? What's this? Da, 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 da. And I told them it was her 21st birthday. She went out with some friends. I showed up later, and they're like, is there anybody who can corroborate that story? And I was like, yeah, we had a mutual friend. You can talk to her. And I was like, okay. And the EMTs ended up going inside and like getting her like to a more like coherent state. I think they got her with an IV and whatnot. And they're like, yeah, it just looks like she partied too hard. Someone might have slipped something into her drink. Because they're like, what is she doing up here? I was like, well, she's going to school. She's from this county in Ohio. And they're like, oh. They're like, well, how many drinks did she have? And I was like, I think she only had this many. And they're like, yeah, they probably put something in her drink then if she's from this county. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, so you know. So they ended up like getting her calmed down. And so I'm sitting on the front porch kind of by myself because they like want to keep me separated for whatever reason. And I think probably because they want to make sure it's not like a domestic, like, battery sort of thing, like I was, like, sexually assaulting her or anything like that. So her roommate, Sarah, starts bebopping down the road. She goes, oh, I saw the lights. I thought you might be down here. And I was like, hi, Sarah. I found her. She's like, oh, yeah, that's great. She's like, well, where is she? And I was like, she's inside. She goes, okay. So Sarah walks inside, and all I hear is, hi, Pumpkin, how are you feeling? Because I felt like I was doing all the hard work, and I was doing all this stress, and I'm like, Sarah doesn't have a care in the world. Like, ugh. So the police start talking to Sarah, and like Sarah basically just tells them everything I just told them. And they were like much more patient with her. Like me, I felt like I was getting grilled. And then when they were talking to Sarah, they're just like, oh, yeah, okay, of course, yeah. I was 21 too, and blah, 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 whatever. So they get Holly and Sarah out of the house, and they put both of them in the back of the cop car, and I was like, where are you taking them? They're like, oh, we're taking them home. I was like, oh, okay. can I get a ride too? They're like, how far is it? And I was like, it's about half a mile, 3/4 of the way down there. And they're like, yeah, you can walk it. They made my ass walk back. So they take them back, and I walk back, and I'm just like fuming, and I was like, this isn't fair, blah blah blah. I'm so upset. So I finally get back to her place, and Sarah has her all tucked in bed. And by the time I get there, Sarah's just coming out, and she shuts the door. And she goes, wow, that was a night. And I was like, yeah, I was there. I didn't say that. I'm just being sassy because I was upset. And I was like, yeah, tell me about it. And so I was like, is she all in bed now? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, I think I'm just going to crash out on the couch here, make sure that she doesn't leave again. We'll lock all the doors and whatnot. She goes, I think that's probably a good idea. I was like, okay. And I was like paranoid that she would try to leave the house again. So I like ended up getting a couple of like empty like pop cans and getting like a drawstring from a trash bag and like lining him up so I can make one of those like trip wires, and I like tape it to the door frame so that like if she tried to leave I could hear or something like that, or maybe she'd trip or whatever. But we made it through the rest of the night. So the next morning I I don't really sleep very well, so I am just kind of like laying on the couch, like on my phone. And I start to hear her stir in her room. So I could go in there and like knock, and I open the door and I go, hi honey, how are you? She's like, oh, kind of got a bit of a headache, but outside of that, I don't really remember much. I was like, oh, okay, well, we did, turn in early, and I don't mention anything. And she's like, man, I've never been this hungover. I don't really remember anything. I've never been like that. And I was like, it happens to us all on our 21st birthdays. She goes, oh, yeah, I guess. And it gets quiet for a minute. And she goes, can I ask you something? I was like, yeah, sure. What's up? She goes, did I fall last night? I said, well, what makes you say that? She goes, my ankle is swollen and it really hurts to move it. And I was like, I don't remember you falling. If you did, I probably wasn't around yet. No, I mean, I don't think so. And I'm honest. I don't know. And she goes, okay. But what's with this Band-Aid? And she has like a little Band-Aid on there from where I guess the EMTs put like an IV in her. And I go, I don't know. And it kind of gets quiet again. She looks at me, she goes, did I leave the house last night? And I was like, I don't know how to answer that. And I just kind of look at her, and she looks back at me, and I see tears start welling up in her eyes. She goes, oh my God, I thought that was a dream. And I was like, well, it wasn't a dream. She's like, how bad was it? And I was like, do you want me to tell you that it wasn't bad, or do you want me to be honest? And it's like, she's like breaking down in tears. She's like, oh my God. And I was like, you're not in trouble or anything like that. We probably should avoid walking in front of this house on this particular street. But I think we got through last night relatively unscathed. She's like, I've never drank that much, or like, I've never been that drunk from drinking that much, and this and that. She's like, somebody had to have put something in my drink. And I was like, I believe you. But that happened. And that's why I don't go out for people's birthdays anymore.